Um, so so excited to pass the mic to Tony Chen. Tony has been part of Light Dow. He came to a couple salons in New York middle of last year, and quickly joined the community. He's been shuffling around the world, based in Puerto Rico, is currently in Dubai, and he can obviously talk about himself. He also launched the Puerto Rico Light Dow chapter with us. It's been about a month and a half or so now. I went and stayed at his home. We had a beautiful salon there, and I'm excited to continue to develop the community in Puerto Rico together. And he's been working on PrimeVax now for 9 years. I'm already in and committed to supporting Tony and his growth and everything that he's doing that we believe is a cure for cancer. Tony, I'll pass it to you, and then from there we can have a Q&A and we can open up the conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, brother. Much love, Payam. Yeah, guys, it's a pleasure. I'm Tony, co-founder of PrimeVax Immuno-Oncology Cancer Biotech Company. I'm calling you guys in from Dubai right now. Most of the time, as Payam mentioned, I'm in Puerto Rico. Today, I'm grateful for the guys from thousands of years ago who invented yoga. It's been a really long conference here in Dubai. And I've just been not like exercising and been extremely stiff running from event to event. So finally actually stretching out, doing a light workout, felt amazing afterwards, super grateful. And obviously really grateful to you guys here for taking the time to join this session. And especially grateful to Payam and Ruby for orchestrating this. So thank you so much. What I'll do for this session is I'll share my screen and I'll do maybe like a 5 or 10 minute presentation of PrimeVax as a company. And then what we'll do is, I'll really leave the majority of the time for questions with you guys. I think that would be probably the best use of time for this. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. So PrimeVax Immuno-Oncology, cancer biotech business that we've founded back in 2015 now. So it's actually 9 years of development. The too long didn't read summary for you is that we are a clinical stage cancer biotech company with multiple assets, but really the lead one that is of the most interest, I think, for this conversation is that we are using a dengue fever virus to treat cancer. And really over the last 9 years, we took this lead asset from idea stage all the way through to a human clinical trial stage with completed human phase 1A clinical trial data with 21 healthy volunteer patients treated so far. As you guys might know, human clinical trials with FDA blessing and everything else goes phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then you submit to the FDA, you get the approval, and then you go ahead and move toward commercialization. So we have just finished up human phase 1A, and we are about to begin phase 1B. The human phase 1A data have already been published in medical journals, peer-reviewed, validated, public, all information out there in the Journal of Translational Medicines, in the Journal of Science, and in the Journal of Virology. All the lab work, manufacturing, patents, regulatory with the FDA, commercial agreements, hospital relationships, data gathering, data analysis, publications, et cetera, all that stuff is done up to this point as a biotech business. And, I'll talk about the team in a moment, but we have some of the strongest cancer immunotherapy doctors in the world, I think, on our team. And we have a couple other assets as well that are really like de-risking and allowing us to have multiple shots on goal. Just for a little bit of context on biotech companies before I dive a little deeper, for those folks who do not come from a biotech specific background, biotech businesses are not revenue generating businesses in the majority of the cases. What we do is that we raise money and then we spend that money on running scientific experiments and lab and human clinical trials. And then those data are then written up and published in journals. And then you take that data set and then you actually start negotiating with the pharma companies to either license the technology or get it acquired. Or you go down the IPO path, which is another common path toward an exit. So I just wanted to help the team understand, just generally the inherent business model of this industry. And the lead asset for what we have developed really for this treatment for cancer is using the dengue fever virus. And you guys might know this, dengue is a tropical disease. It's a mosquito-borne disease, a mosquito in Vietnam, Brazil, Thailand, the Philippines, anywhere where there's like jungle foliage, like, even in Puerto Rico, it exists, as an example, a lot in Central America and South America. This virus, we believe, and based on our data set so far, suggests that it is very anti-cancer in nature. And we've seen this both in the literature that's been published already out there before we started running experiments, as well as obviously in our own experiments. And I'll walk through a little snippet of what that looks like. And the fundamental principle behind it is basically that a patient who is sick with a dengue fever looks like they're actually experiencing anti-cancer response. So meaning, said in dumb words, if I were to take a human patient and give them the dengue fever virus, and this can actually be both in nature or us giving it to them in our clinical trials, and I were to measure, their blood proteins, and I were to measure their immune activation via their T cells, their NK cells, other cells like that, et cetera, what you'll see is that, those immune activations that happen as a result of the dengue fever infection process, if you were to just remove the label at the top that says that it's dengue fever, it would look very much like anti-cancer response if you were to show it to a cancer doctor. And on that principle, on that idea, we said, okay, let's go and find the best possible strain of dengue fever virus to be able to, turn into a drugifiable product. And we ended up getting a collaboration with the US Army. So we have a worldwide exclusive license with the US Army on their dengue fever virus. The Army had been developing the dengue fever as a vaccine candidate strain. So they were trying to actually immunize soldiers going to like Africa, for example, and they wanted to prevent them from getting dengue. So along comes us as a cancer biotech, and we said, hey, look, we have this thesis for dengue. We've been running experiments. Let us license this tech from you and let us open the entire cancer market for you, which you as the US Army had not been using the dengue at all for any purpose whatsoever in the cancer space. And they agreed. So we ended up getting a extremely favorable commercial contract with the Army. And the beauty of that model is, or that beauty of that agreement is really that the Army had actually been developing this asset, this dengue fever virus, for 20 years. And they have spent $20 million on the manufacturing, the clinical data, the laboratory experiments, so on and so forth. And also the regulatory too, with the FDA. So they already have a master file for this drug product on file with the FDA, which means that it is fully manufactured to GMP quality standards, which means human clinical grade quality. So it's already legally cleared to be injected into humans. That's what we've been using for the 21 healthy patients so far. And that manufacturing process is so well understood and characterized that we already have access to thousands of bottles of these dengue fever virus bottles. It's basically they've lyophilized this virus, which is really like they took a live virus and they turned it into a freeze-dried powder, which is honestly kind of crazy how they've done that. But that's the lyophilization manufacturing process. It is well understood as a manufacturing process. So that means that it's basically able to be shipped to any hospital and deployed into those human patients. So with that strain of dengue, we then ran a bunch of experiments on it in the laboratory. And sure enough, we saw multiple mechanisms of action. I'll walk through a couple of those just to give you guys a sense of it. We won't do a deep dive for today on the science, but that of course is available in diligence. We found that it basically multiple anti-tumor mechanisms means that we've seen that this virus is able to kill tumors via 3 different unique ways that are immunologically or virally different from each other. So what that also means for us, that gives us confidence going into human cancer patients as the next stage, is that we don't really expect any, or we don't really need any one particular mechanism to work. We've seen that it delivers on 3 of them that we feel good about, and we've seen them repeated over time. And of course, just to round up the data set so far, the 21 patients that we've already treated so far in the healthy non-cancer patients, they were all extremely safe. They were overwhelmingly safe. In terms of adverse events, which is the industry benchmark measurement of safety profile for human clinical trials, there are 4 adverse event grades, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We only detected grades 1 and 2, no 3 and 4. which are the more life-threatening adverse events. So that means that we know that this is a very, very safe, comfortable virus to be moving into sick cancer patients coming up. And of course, we've seen that this thing's been able to kill every tumor cell line that we've thrown at it, every mouse model that we've put it on, and every biopsy where we cut a tumor out of a human, grow that in the lab, and then inject the dengue into it. It's killed them consistently across melanoma, breast, prostate, and lung. And we've also seen a little bit of data on our end as well around brain cancer as well. So that's the overview on the business. In terms of what the data show so far, and what we've already been able to observe, the executive summary here really, and I won't go through every single one of these. I don't want us to turn this into a deep dive science mechanism discussion, but basically the data is on the right track. We've seen that it's killing tumor in very novel and also well understood ways, according to these 5 big rows of mechanisms. And we've also have the regulatory opened, and we can scale much more easily than other biotech businesses, which usually have to do a lot more, manufacturing of their drug product before they're able to scale. Whereas we don't have to do that because we kind of sidestep that entire process because of our license deal with the US Army. And really, I think we're poised for a very good value inflection for the first patient in for the cancer patient study coming up. Here's some of the data. I won't go through this too much. Happy to share this deck afterwards, and of course, do deep dives with folks who are interested. But there's differentiation here. There's very, very high novel mechanisms that we've seen activate, and we've seen very potent immunostimulation throughout the entire process of a dengue infection, which is kind of the expected outcome that we were looking for. Right now, we're about to enter phase 1B/2. Everything from in vitro all the way through phase 1A is done, and we're raising up to $5 million to be able to treat the first up to 20 or 30 cancer patients. And in terms of what that multiple might look like in terms of an exit profile for investors, and really this is the slide that I will end this on for this purpose. Really, I think we're looking at anywhere between 10 to 40x potential return on the current valuation of the current raise. Really, we're raising anywhere between 3 to 5 million. I rounded some numbers here for the purpose of the slide deck, but it's really on the low end 1.5 mil, on the high end 5 mil at a reasonable 27 million valuation. We have a valuation report from BDO, which is a top accounting firm that valued us between 26.5 to 45 million in the current relatively lowered market environment that is the biotech industry right now. We're hoping to be done with this in 2 to 4 years, where we generate some of this good anti-cancer data, and then we advance into a licensing or an exit opportunity with like a Merck or a BMS. We hope to achieve 10 to 40x return for investors. Exits in the cancer space are the most lucrative in all of healthcare, and healthcare accounts for around 20% of the US GDP. Immuno-oncology exits, typically at phase 2 onwards, are between 500 million to a couple of billion. I've seen neutral cases between 250 to 500-ish. And we're also seeing some recent wins in the oncolytic virus industry, which is really, the category, the industry subcategory that we belong to. Other viruses to treat cancer have produced good data sets, or they've driven toward exits. So that's been good so far as well in terms of, like multiple assets that are in fact actually demonstrating the potential of this category of treatment approach. So to summarize it, we're already de-risked. We feel good about the human safety, the manufacturing, the lab work, the patents, the regulatory, and we have extremely high capital efficiency. We've only raised $5 million to get to this point so far, to treat 21 humans, including all the manufacturing, regulatory patents, etc. Most biotechs will take 15 to 20 million to get here. We got here for 5. Now we need no more than 5 to be able to hit the next value inflection point to drive toward a very large exit. That's basically the overall summary for the business. I do have some slides around team, background, so on and so forth, but I want to cut this, keep this short and sweet for now. Happy to open it up to Q&A.
Thanks, brother.
Mhm.
Any questions, comments?
Oh, this is incredible, Tony. This is just mind-blowing work that you guys have done. This is like,
Thank you.
wow, amazing. I do have, I have to leave for a meeting. And I definitely want to connect you with some strategic partners, investors, and maybe our own VC arm can look into this. We can talk more offline. Payam, how are we going to connect with everybody? Should we just drop our email here?
I'll send an email out to everyone.
Okay. Okay. If you could do that, LinkedIn, email. I think email and text would be best for me because LinkedIn is hard to manage. So much is going on there. I think direct.
I'll send an email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Payam, could you just go back to the group now and stop screen sharing? So we can see everybody and people can ask questions. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yep.
So Tony, could you comment on because this is obviously a very connected group, right? And other people are going to be seeing this video. Who are the ideal investors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead. Because I meet
Yeah.
so many people, right? Like there's a lot of people interested in health tech, but particularly what area in health tech are your sweet spot that would really understand what you're doing and see the amazing progress you've made and the exit possibility.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, Ruby, thank you. So I think that the ideal investors would be really at this point, it's a very small round. And actually, I should mention this. I apologize. I didn't mention this earlier. As of earlier today, we received a letter of interest from a venture capital firm that would potentially lead the round, and they've moved forward to stage 2 out of 3 of diligencing the project. It's called Limitless Ventures, and they would be committing anywhere between $1 to $3 million as their sweet spot for this round, and their claim to fame, quote unquote, is that they've invested into 22 biotech, medtech, and digital health investments over the last, I think, 3 to 5 years. And they've actually led to 10 exits of those 22. So a great track record. I think that, like for the folks on this call, and being that this is recorded to be shared with other folks later, I think it would be, angels, family offices, and other small VCs who would be interested, or independent investors who would be interested in following on with a institutional venture capital firm that would be leading the diligence and making sure and holding us accountable more than anything else. I think we're very big on making sure that we stay true to fiduciary responsibility. Yeah.
So just on that note, the managing partner of Limitless Ventures, Alex Holt, is a LightDAO owner. Alex met Tony through us. So he's already in the network, and he's the venture capitalist that is looking to, potentially be leading this round. And I'm coordinating diligence with Alex Holt. So all the deal room docs and everything we're in conversation about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Payam. Yeah, it was wonderful to meet Alex in New York City via LightDAO. So super grateful to the community here. And yes, I think it will be very much a, we'll make sure that all the materials are shared in the data room, in the follow-up diligence materials, to give people that sense of comfort on both our track record and where we're going next.
So Tony, for angel investors, what kind of size check?
I think anywhere on, I don't make my life too miserable, guys. Our team doesn't want to process too many very, very small checks. So
That's the reason why I'm asking that.
Yeah, 25K would be ideal. We'll take lower if needed.
Well, 25 is very accessible for many angel investors.
I think
We could
so.
probably also set up an SPV if you want.
Yeah, I'd be grateful for that.
We are looking at that if we have enough interest within the LightDAO community to set up an SPV. That's part of what we do.
Exactly. So we'll be reaching out to people and asking about that. Tony, could you also mention the 5 million that's been invested so far? Could you comment on who are the major parties in that?
Yep, absolutely. So it's been high net worth family offices. It's been a couple of the partners at venture capital funds. So one of the partners with Teal Capital, Peter Thiel's group. It's been multiple pharma executives across, let's see here. They were at BMS, AstraZeneca, Sanofi, and also a couple of angel groups such as Canada's Halo Health group, which is Canada's largest biotech angel investment group, primarily comprising of doctors like MDs and PhDs.
Wow. See, to me, that's really important information,
Yep.
right? The fact that pharma executives have invested into you early on, because
Yep.
those are the people that's would know the exit potential, right?
Yep.
So,
That's right. Exactly.
so
Thank you.
that's a great
Absolutely.
piece of information, you know?
Yep. Thank you.
Since we still have some time, could you share with us like your inspiration for doing this? I mean, you've been doing this for like many years of your life, which is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and you're a
Thank
tech
you.
executive. So what inspired you to do this?
Yeah, I always tell people that I got into this for business first, but then I stayed in it because of the mission. So a little bit about my background. I'm an economist by education, went to UPenn for undergrad, spent 8 years being a strategy consultant in pharma, so launching drugs on behalf of pharma, whether it was pricing, whether it was reimbursement, whether it was getting the drugs covered on insurance formularies like Aetna, Cigna, NICE in the UK, the HTA groups in Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So I knew the business side very well of drug launches, and my quote unquote claim to fame back when I used to be a consultant was that I wrote the value messages for BMS's PD-1 drug in 2013, which then went on to, so we got that covered by insurance formularies for reimbursement. And then that drug 4 years later went on to win the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2017, 2018. That was Jim Allison's group. And BMS, of course, snatched it up. It now makes between $6 to $8 billion per year in revenue on an ongoing basis. And really, like, I think for me, I went into it, knowing the commercial. And then as I started building the biotech, many people in my life passed away of cancer. I was able to save some of them. I was able to, I knew the cancer clinical trial process well, so we would help them get onto cancer clinical trials. And I would also extend that, idea to everybody on this call too. If you have anybody in your life who's been impacted by cancer, please have them reach out to me, or really have you reach out to me. I will personally help you find some clinical trial options for them. We've been able to extend life for those patients by whenever we find a good match between their specific disease state and their and the cancer clinical trial. It's usually been half a year to 3 extra years of survival above and beyond whatever they would normally get. And that's usually late stage metastatic disease. So, like treatment failure type situations. So like that's just something I do in the evenings and weekends, just because I think it's the right thing to do. And because I happen to know the processes. So that's just an open invitation to everybody in the Light Down group here, guys. Reach out to me if you have any questions about that, or anybody in your life impacted by it. And like I think I stayed in it because I've seen both the good and the bad of cancer. Like I've seen when lives are saved. I've also seen it when I've attended enough funerals to know that those suck. I don't like those. And 3.5 years ago, my own mom also got cancer, and so through that process, we were able to scramble to really save her as well. We got her through the surgery as quickly as we could. We got her onto a new cutting-edge immunotherapy drug that half a year later got FDA approval at phase 3. And we got the drug for free. That's the other thing to mention. Cancer clinical trials are all free, so there's no out-of-pocket expenses for those guys, as another little FYI. And she's been 3.5 years cancer-free now. We're carefully monitoring it, and we're going to make sure that she continues to stay cancer-free until year 5, because at year 5, then the survival rate significantly increases and we are a lot less under pressure. So that's the type of, like that's kind of the world that I came from back in the day. And it's really just at this point, it's a mission that I want to see through to the end. And I think we're very close.
Yeah. So Tony, thank you so much for your devotion, your mission.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I should also mention a couple other things before I forget. Since we have a minute or two, I'll share my slide one more time. And just by way of background on some of the team, in terms of, like our team, they're some of the strongest immuno-oncologists in the world. This is, really a part-time team that we've built here up top, because we've really just we've gotten the vast majority of the work actually done. And now it's really just spending it on the cancer hospital trial site coming up. But Dr. Bernie Fox, as an example, was a former president of SITC, which is a 10,000 person cancer organization, worldwide Society for Immunotherapy of Cancer. Every 2 years, they elect a new president. We have four past presidents working with us: Bernie Fox, Howard Kaufman, Franco Marincola, and another gal named Lisa Butterfield, who's not on this particular deck, but she ran our experiments that enabled our FDA application. Some of these folks are some of the strongest in the cancer space. Franco literally wrote the cancer immunotherapy textbook. It is cited over 600 times. Howard Kaufman is a celebrated immuno-oncologist in Boston. Paolo Ascerto, as an example, is an editor of multiple journals and also is the organizer of a large cancer conference out in Italy called the Immunotherapy Bridge, among many of these other guys. Joyson, as an example, in this particular case, is a chief medical officer for multiple pharma companies, and he's led to 2 exits when he ran the clinical trials for both Arcus and Tizona. Arcus was an IPO, and Tizona was a licensing deal, I think, to Sanofi. It's been a while. I could be mistaken. I could be remembering who acquired them, but it was a big pharma that ended up, taking out the Tizona asset. So I think from our perspective, and between myself coming from drug launch consulting and the rest of this brain trust, who are some of the strongest in cancer immunotherapy, I feel very confident that we've got the mental horsepower to be able to push this through.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Last questions from any others? We have 3 minutes.
I mean, if nobody else has any questions, I just had some little questions. What is the gap between the phase 1 and the upcoming phase 1B? It was a couple of years. Is that just you were waiting for funding, or were there any safety issues that you were analyzing, or?
No safety issues, David. It was basically, we were just, as you know, the biotech industry has taken a hit in the last 2 years. And really, it's just in the process. During that time, we said, let's just go through all the peer-reviewed publications and get those all lined up and good to go. So now we've gotten those good to go, and now we're able to actually go back now that the industry is starting to recover. That's basically it, more than anything else.
And when do you anticipate dosing your first patient?
If we have the funding, I can begin as early as this summer. The hospital is ready to go. It's in upstate New York, in SUNY Upstate Medical University in Syracuse. And that's where the US Army team has outsourced all of their dengue activity to. So we know that we are on really good safety ground, and those guys are extremely familiar with the use of that virus. They're comfortable with it.
And it looks like you've chosen melanoma and an intratumoral injection. Can you just talk about the choices there of the first, the first patient set?
That's right, absolutely. So we spoke with multiple pharma companies: BMS, Amgen, Merck, GSK, and Sanofi, with both their BD teams as well as their clinical development teams. And they have overwhelmingly told us 2 things that they thought was really important for our selection strategy for the disease indication, as well as the clinical trial strategy. So in the PD-1 refractory, which is treatment failed melanoma patient population, there's still nothing approved. So we're going after that population. So basically, when patients fail the PD-1 drug, the same one that I wrote the value messages for back in the day, that category of PD-1 drug, they'll then receive a shot of dengue. We'll watch them throughout the entire process, monitor them, keep them safe, and then put them back onto PD-1 afterwards. So this PD-1, dengue, PD-1 sandwiching strategy is what all the pharma companies told us that is the specific data set that they are looking for in order to start talking. Because that is the data set that they know that after PD-1 fails, there's nothing approved. So, and we happen to know that in our laboratory data sets that PD-1 is very immunostimulatory, and it also overcomes PD-1 resistance. So, and in fact, the lab data that we've shown so far tends to show that it actually kills the tumors that are more late-stage metastatic category, more than the earlier stage, less metastatic, less mutated cell lines that we ran this on. So we think that the dengue actually is exploiting more vulnerabilities the more mutated a tumor is, which to us is actually kind of attractive because it kind of marries up the commercial angle of, like acquisition path along with what our data is pointing us toward. if that makes sense.
So
Yeah, no, that
I
seems like
think
a
I
good
am, we
choice
have
for
to,
first indication. Yeah.
Was there any,
I am,
yeah, is there any last question? I know we're a minute, we're going into overtime, but just to give the space for Tony to answer any last question. Okay.
Outside of funding, what would be useful in terms of partners or other forms of support?
What size of funding, Elliot, you asked?
No, outside of funding, aside
Oh.
from funding.
Yeah, I think at this point now, you know, like I think after we start treating the first couple of patients, I would love to do like a marketing campaign around this, just because I think it is a very unique story that is being told. No one's really thought of using the dengue fever virus to treat cancer before, and we are intending to use it in its pure viral infection state. We're not using the virus as like a carrier or to genetically sneak something into the body. We're giving people full-blown dengue fever, just that it happens to be very well controlled. So that story, I think, is very generally newsworthy. And once we establish some of the data and we feel good about sharing it and we get the proper, you know, like disclosure forms signed with the patients, then I think it would be awesome to get it out there
Love
and
to
start
chat
telling
about
the story
that.
publicly.
Awesome.
Absolutely, Elliot. Thank you so much.
Hi, Tony. Very quick. I think it would be germane for the investor folks on this call to kind of realize that there are multiple liquidity opportunities and exits in terms of a cytokine. So you can market that as an off-the-shelf kind of cytokine, whether it's granzyme, perforant, and then that can be an adjuvant to many established oncotherapies. And that can also be a liquidity opportunity besides the attenuated virus.
Absolutely, Abid. Yes, thank you so much for saying that. Yes, there are multiple shots on goal toward a exit opportunity for us. We could, for example, create proteins, exactly as you said. And the dengue does cause blood to create these proteins that kill tumors. That is one of the unique mechanisms of action. And it would be essentially a non-viral, non-cell mechanism of tumor killing, which hasn't really been seen before in other immunotherapies. So that's fascinating that dengue induces that. And that can be turned into an off-the-shelf product, exactly to your point, Abid. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and one other last point I think that is worth mentioning to the team, to the group here, just on principle, epidemiologically speaking, we're not going to say that this is the single most important factor, but FDA did zero in on this, and the U.S. Army did zero in on this too. Countries that have dengue have a rate of cancer, 60% of those countries without dengue. So countries that don't have dengue happen to have a higher rate of cancer. Countries with dengue have a lower rate of cancer. Epidemiologically, this is just true across all the countries that we've observed so far in the known world, where dengue is the dengue data is aggregated and reported. FDA asked us this question, so there we know that there is some factor going on there. We would be silly to say that dengue is the only factor that led to that significantly lower rate of cancer in those countries. There's many other factors, other viruses, lifestyle, etc., diet, etc. But it does support the hypothesis, which I think also makes this a potentially interesting, you know, like story to tell when it comes time to selling it to the pharma guys later on too, because it, you know, kind of the data and the science will kind of dovetail with what we understand just on principle based on what the real world shows in terms of viral behavior.
so thank you very much, Tony, for everything you've done. And thank you all for being here with us and hearing his amazing story. So Payam, is there anything else that before we conclude?
No, I think that's good. I will send out a email with the startups that gave a pitch earlier and Tony's information as well. And if there is interest in any capacity to be involved during the diligence process, investing as a partner, please also feel free to reach out to me directly, since I will be coordinating a lot of the diligence with Limitless and potentially putting together an SPV if we do have enough interest to invest in Tony's company. So thank you all for your time. Appreciate you. Grateful. Thanks for those that are still here an hour and 5 minutes in. And much love and have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for your great work.
Thank you so much, guys. Much love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care,
Talk
guys.
soon. Bye.
Thanks, Tony. Bye.
Hi, Max.